Continuing its tradition of having famed comic talents like athletes you've forgotten and politicians you wish you could, SNL recently announced that Elon Musk would be hosting. Since then, the goofy bastard has tweeted that he was looking forward to seeing just how live Saturday Night Live was, whatever the hell that means. I'm assuming he's citing his personal expertise for live events in the past, but it's still unclear. In celebration of May Day, Musk ended up crowdsourcing jokes from his army of online simps, settling with hilarious topics like woke James Bond, baby Shark Tank, and Irony Man.
Well, now,
the Doge Father.
Okay, Doge Father. So, hang on. So, now, what is Dogecoin?
Well, it actually started as a joke based on an internet meme, but now it's taken off in a very real way.
So it's a hustle.
Yeah, it's a hustle.
I ain't just say that, man. Doge Father, everybody. It's a hustle.
To the moon!
Musk famously moved to Texas in 2020 in order to pay almost no income tax, and was also reported to have made $2.3 billion from Tesla, according to the New York Times, when Tesla also reported that he had no earnings. So that move really just kind of brought him not paying taxes above board. Tax avoidance is an issue with Musk and the rest of the extremely wealthy and some of the largest companies in the United States, at least partially because you don't get to put your name on anything from just paying your taxes. What these entities do instead is make grand gestures that comparably don't actually bring in as much as if they would have just paid their taxes. Not to mention, these moves often just wind up being a commercial for wealthy people or for massive corporations that already have marketing wings. The absurdly wealthy could easily come together and combine forces to provide literally everyone with a good standard of living and still have enough money left over to never run out and not really know what to actually do with it all. But instead, they just name a museum, institution, or organization after themselves and call it a day. And most importantly, in the end, the public talks about them giving back when they don't even pay taxes at the same rate as that public that is now simping for them. It's a giant shell game where the idea of community is shuffled away for a flashy version of whatever the hell that rich person wants, be it in the physical form of an institution or by steering the conversation a certain way that behooves them and their interests. Arguably the most famous example of this is the Sackler family, where brothers Arthur, Raymond, and Mortimer were the doctors who founded Purdue Pharma. They've made contributions to a massive number of institutions, many of whom have reconsidered their donations and how they were funded. These gifts include gifts to the MoMA, which has a Sackler wing, the Guggenheim, the American Museum of Natural History in New York City, as well as Smithsonian's Art Museum in DC, the Tate Gallery in London, the Louvre. In addition to this, they made a lot of donations to universities. Some of these gifts were also made to local groups, including one dedicated to reaching children at risk for high-risk behaviors, including substance abuse. Which is really weird for them, seeing as how they had no problem aggressively marketing a drug they knew had terrible side effects, even going as far as secretly trying to keep West Virginia from imposing regulations on its sale. If someone is a minor, they're off limits for Purdue Pharma. But once they hit 18, they're just a would-be customer. Which I guess is sort of like the inverse for Matt Gaetz. The Sacklers sponsoring art after everything they've done is like them finger painting with the blood on their hands from the opioid crisis, from which 50,000 died in 2019 alone. In his book Winners Take All, Anand Giridharadas brings up the Teddy Roosevelt quote that no amount of charities and spending such fortunes can compensate in any way for the misconduct in acquiring them. Known for being an era of consolidation that required Teddy Roosevelt's intervention via trust busting, this was also the era when those same wealthy and powerful began to give back some of their gains. While he often himself didn't provide for his workers as well as he could have, Andrew Carnegie, the inspiration for Scrooge McDuck, derided the extremely wealthy for hoarding great sums of wealth all their lives. The proper use of which public ends would work good to the community should be made to feel that the community cannot thus be deprived of its proper share. If Carnegie was going to be diving into a pool of his own profits, he didn't want the fill to stagnate. In the end, he redistributed much of his gains to the public, investing in the common good with things like a banging museum system and what would later become my own personal alma mater, Carnegie Tech. While investments are still made for the public good, they've become a sort of monkey's paw situation. You might be asking, well, how exactly can rich people giving back be a bad thing? Well, that depends. What did they do to get that money? And what do you need to do to make sure that that gift keeps trickling down? Philanthropy is great for the wealthy because if people notice they did something fucked up, they can go, well, what about that money I gave? And people stop questioning. In a weird way, it's kind of like that skit from I Think You Should Leave, where a man in a hot dog suit crashes his hot dog-shaped car through the window of a store. When people are angry about him driving in, he suggested they search for the culprit,
maybe take his bare butt out of his costume and spank him.
but no one really goes for it, despite him trying his damnedest to get everyone on board. This situation is kind of like what we experienced with Billionaires, but we're all looking around the store for blaming a third party and settling on an ineffective solution. By not being more concerned with the source of that funding, we're basically ignoring the matching hot dog outfit and car and letting them spank all of our
Bare butts.
Take the Beak Center for Social Impact and Innovation at Georgetown University, for example. It was founded by Alberto and Olga Maria Beck, who made money off mining in South Africa. Them having such an influential position means that there's a financial interest in changes not affecting operations as they are, leaving things that would have considerable impact like taxation, redistribution, labor laws, and mining regulations off the table. Also, by having this position, someone in their role can steer things and use their influence and status to shape our outcomes, eventually creating support at the university level that reflects the wishes of their funders and creates an institutional sort of manufacturing consent. For example, when it's possible, the wealthy often steer talks away from inequality and towards poverty, because it treats a lacking in large segments of society as a problem that we can solve with a donation or some type of situation that makes us feel like we all solved a problem when we apply a band-aid, but actually just allow the problem to fester. Conversely, inequality looks at how that massive amount of money was made, what was done to get it, and how it was allocated after the fact. Currently, there's a focus on poverty without attempts to change the system that allows those conditions to persist, sometimes even facilitating them because it benefits a segment that can use their influence to further entrench their power. Everything is filtered through market world, as Jared Haradas calls it. And market world is the philanthropic complex that neuters effective change by co-opting a language and impetus towards bettering the world into greenwashing and bullshitting their way through empty platitudes without actually innovating in a meaningful way. They often employ people who legitimately attempt to pursue a career trying to improve a certain field or issue. And there's language about doing good while doing well for people who most certainly aren't doing anything differently than when they were doing bad other than hiring the right PR. People like to think that the wealthy can fix world problems by bringing together the right minds to solve problems and address social innovation. But what if that was all just PR fluff? It's hard not to notice massive problems persisting while multi-billionaires could wipe these out in one fell swoop while still being multi-billionaires and having more money than they could ever possibly spend. The fact of the matter is both the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the Clinton Foundation came about to rehabilitate wealthy figures with controversial images. And this move has largely worked for both of them. 90s kids will remember Bill Gates' reputation for ruthlessness, like when he destroyed Homer Simpson's home business and would-be competitor, like he actually did to a lot of his competition prior to his move with the foundation. While he's now depicted as a benign personality, we get the occasional glimpse into the fact that he may still be that same cutthroat businessman. One example happened recently when Gates' foundation intervened and convinced Oxford University to delay their AstraZeneca COVID vaccine rollout in the name of privatization. It recently came out that Bill and Melinda Gates will be getting divorced, but also that their philanthropic efforts will outlive their marriage. You have to feel for Bill too. He's going into white boy summer single and without his ideal white boy summer wingman. When one considers the reputation of Amazon for its mistreatment of its warehouse workers and delivery drivers done in order to preserve the bottom line of the world's richest man, it's no surprise that Jeff Bezos is trying to pivot away from flashy Lex Luthor photo ops and his employee abuses with some massive donations as he hands off the reins of Amazon. But this reinvention routine where a cutthroat businessman rehabilitates himself into a philanthropic visionary so he can guide society is beyond cliche at this point. That being said, if his PR works, it's going to be only a few years before people act like Bezos is more Caillou than Lex Luthor. Philanthropy isn't reserved for just laundering billionaires' reputations either. The Clinton Global Initiative is a rehabilitative branding exercise that gives multinational companies an opportunity, much like its creation did for Clinton after a presidency plagued by controversy left him with a bruised reputation. Darren Walker has a quote in Winner Takes All that sums this up pretty succinctly. It's Davos for the social do-good set. Philanthropists and commercial enterprises saw that they could leverage both doing good and building their brands. Basically, you can network with your business here if you agree to help people. This approach also suggests that change should happen outside of the public forum and between private entities. It suggests that representative politics shouldn't decide how society functions, but instead have a seat at the table with businesses who might just choose projects based on the returns of their financial backers. It's pretty sus that the same people in the private market who always claim to have the best ideas are also very fearful of having them actually compete. This special seat at the table allows these elite saviors to have undue influence in which social issues matter, and then set the agenda for addressing them, with society in a reactive position to the more often than not self-interested musings of the privileged. One of the main ideals of the Clinton Global Initiative was that the private sector would be pulled into working with the public sector to achieve results. But it's important to ask, who influences who now? Institutions and partnerships from places like the Clinton Global Initiative function as a way for companies to pay a minor contrition while continuing to do the shit they feel guilty about. This is like an abuser confessing something to a priest, only to leave to abuse somebody moments later once they've had their conscience eased for a moment. By allowing this situation, we're not only saying that it's okay, but we're also letting them do it again. Might seem like, whatever, but you only have value as an individual because collectively we as society have decided that you do. And without political institutions to give you a say, might makes right. And in our current system, the wealthy have a shitload more might than you do. Conceding this value to a billionaire is nothing short of simpy, willful serfdom. Some industries, like big tech, and specifically Facebook, have been given a tremendous amount of influence and wealth that they wouldn't have really predicted during their product's inception. While this power's been attractive, these entities aren't always interested in the responsibility that comes with wielding that power. Whether it's, holy shit, I can't believe you're literally touring a disaster area as a fucking cartoon avatar, or turning a blind eye to actual genocide, Facebook is woefully inept when it comes to exercising corporate responsibility in ways that seem straight out of really dark satire. As George Radis puts it in Winners Take All, when a society helps people through its shared democratic institutions, it does so on behalf of all and in the context of equality. Those institutions representing those free and equal citizens are making a collective choice of whom to help and how. Those who receive help are not objects of the transaction, but also subject of it. Citizens with agency. When help is moved into the private sphere, no matter how efficient we are told it is, the context of the helping is a relationship of the inequality. The giver and the taker, the helper and the helped, the donor and the recipient. When a society solves a problem politically and systematically, it is expressing the sense of the whole. It is speaking on behalf of every citizen. It is saying what it believes through what it does. Given these avoidance routines, and how they don't seem to do much other than launder money, perhaps it's time we question if us going along with it is us just being simps, effectively giving tacit approval for this massive and elaborate shell game, watching them shuffle money with our eyes glazed over, impressed with the show that comes along with our collective fleecing. We're at a pivotal time for this too, since while most people have been affected negatively by the pandemic, a number of billionaires have actually seen a financial windfall that's made them wealthier than ever. Billionaires aren't something to aspire to. They're a manifestation of a broken system, an illusion of success, and people who should always be given skepticism instead of the steering wheel. Thanks for watching this video. If you made it this far, you probably didn't leave me a comment saying I'm just jealous of billionaires. So I'm assuming you liked it. So why not give me a thumbs up? My release schedule's been a little erratic to say the least. So make sure you subscribe to get notified when I make a new upload, whenever the hell that happens. As always, resources are below. It's been a pleasure ranting at you, and I look forward to seeing you again.